One of the points that you make is that it's very important to avoid being a rigid ideologue to the point where you're completely inflexible, to the point where your ideology completely throws out all the evidence on any proposition and prevents you from being able to see truth.
Well, it depends on whether you want to solve problems or be right. You can't be both of those. And that's one of the tremendous advantages of science is if you want to be a scientist, you have to abandon being right. You have to be wrong all the time and learn. And often learn that the opposite of what you presumed was true. And the same is true if you're a real engineer. In my first book, Maps of Meaning, I tried to provide a technical definition of ideology. And so I developed what I thought was a map of meaning, hence the name of the book, which is that it's predicated on the idea that we inhabit stories, that we look at the world through a story, which is why stories are so attractive to us. And a story is about people in action going from one place to a more desirable place. That's our life. We're going from one place to a more desirable place. And that's punctuated by catastrophes of various magnitude. And we have to cope with those catastrophes. And that's like the rise and fall of Israel in the Old Testament. So it's got that structure. And it's the story of the individual and of society. Well, there are characters you meet along the way. And you need to know about all the characters. You need to know about the positive element of nature. That's what the environmentalists worship. Gaia in her beauty and benevolence and plenitude. And that echoes through representations of Mary, for example, in Christianity. I'm not reducing one to the other. I'm just pointing out how these things interplay. There's the negative element of nature. That's the witch. That's the swamp. That's death and disease and mortality. The forces that are conspiring in the natural world to destroy us. And the social world is the same. There's a benevolent element, the wise king, and a tyrannical element, the tyrant. And in the individual, there's the heroic and the adversary, the hero and the adversary. That's Christ and Satan. That's played out all the time, especially in pop culture. The hostile brother motif is unbelievably common. Thor and Loki is an example. Batman and Joker. Superman and Lex Luthor. It's there everywhere. It's there because we all contend with the malevolence in our own soul. That's part of why it's there. So a religious structure represents all of that. And a comprehensive philosophy represents all of that. You see that in Freud. Freud had a representation in his thought system of every single one of those categories. So the ego was bipolar. The superego, the social world, was bipolar. The id, the natural world, was bipolar. Freud covered the territory. And so he could sneak mythology back into science because he got his story right. An ideology just takes fragments of that. And it derives its power from the underlying religious truth. So you're a rebellious hero rejecting the demands that society makes on you because of its corrupt and deceitful and tyrannical nature. It's like, yes, true. But it's an ideology because it's not true enough. It's missing the rest of the story. And so you need the rest of the story. It's not optional to know this. You don't know it and you're in big trouble. So, for example, if you don't understand that there's malevolence in your own soul and you only see it in the external world, you're not going to be able to adapt to the external world. It's going to turn itself into your enemy. You're going to never grow up because you won't adopt any responsibility because you can't distinguish it from tyranny. These things have real consequences. And if you only see nature as benevolent, then you have no appreciation for what society is protecting you from, and you have no sense of the fundamental fragility of human beings. So, an ideology parasitizes a religious trope. That's what it does. That's why it has power. And so it appeals to us instinctively, and because it's a half-truth or a quarter truth, but it's a quarter true. So I tried in Maps of Meaning to say, look, here's the entire symbolic world. And you need to understand it so you don't fall prey to partial misrepresentations. So that's part of it. The other part is, the problem with an ideology is it doesn't actually tell you what to do, not if you actually want to solve a problem. So with Tremblay, for example, when he was studying aggression, he had to decompose his original a priori assumptions, which were basically Rousseauian. People are good and they learn to be aggressive. He had to learn in high resolution. And then he realized that, well, one thing you could do to decrease some manifestations of aggression among some children, some of the time, was to provide single mothers who were young and poorly educated and who manifested signs of psychopathology, which doctors can pick up very, very easily, provide them with support during pregnancy in the first year or two of their life, and their children are much more likely to fall out of the violent category, and the long-term return on investment is extremely positive. Now that's high resolution thinking. He actually wanted to solve the problem. The ideology just tells you what to think about everything, so you're always right, and someone else is always wrong, and even worse, they're evil, and that's where things go out of control. As soon as the evil person isn't you, you're on shaky ground. Now, I've been criticized too because I stress personal responsibility. It's not like I don't stress social responsibility. It's like, but you're loose cannon, man. Get yourself tied down, straighten yourself the hell up. See if you can say what you believe to be true and open your eyes and take on some responsibility in a manner that will make you suffer if you're wrong. And then, if you can survive that trial by fire, which you can define, then maybe you can dare to start moving the dials and levers of the broader world. It's more a call to humility than a denial of social responsibility. Of course, you're unbelievably responsible for your society and should do what you can to improve it. But you bloody well better make sure that you've got yourself together if you're going to go and do that, because other people will suffer for your mistakes.